welcome to Steve McDonald's Arts and Crafts. Today it's a miserable day. It is absolutely teeming with rain outside, and so I'm in my studio where it's nice and toasty. What I'm going to be doing today is I've seen so many questions on the internet, and I've had lots of questions asked me about mixing resin without creating bubbles. Now, really you should be following the instructions on the resin, because resins are different, but I have found that this technique works for me regardless of what resin I'm using, and I do use quite a large variety of resin. It certainly works well with Mastercast and with Resin 8, which are the two main resins that I use. So without too much of ado, let's get on and I'll show you what I do. Okay, so once I've mixed the resin up, and I'm going to show you how I mix the resin up to avoid bubbles, and then going to use this small triangle and do a casting in that. And what I'm going to be using is, I've polished quite a lot of stones up over the last few years, and I've done large ones, I've done small bits, and I'm just going to fill that with them. I'm also going to use this jewellery mould that I have and pop a few in here like this randomly and cast in that to show you how easy it is to cast without bubbles if you don't have a pressure pot. I've measured my resin out, and what I'm going to do is I'm now going to warm up the resin part of the two-part mix, and it's epoxy resin, in this hot water. And I'm going to leave that in there, not the hardener, just the resin part. I'm going to leave that in there for about 4 minutes. So that's now been in there for 4 minutes, and I'm just going to take it out of the water, and that should have heated it up quite well. And I'm going to dry it off all the way around on this paper towel before I do anything else, because the last thing I want is any of that water getting into my resin. So I'm now going to pour the resin into a pot, and I'm going to run it down the sides because, again, I don't want to introduce bubbles. Okay, that's mostly come out of that pot. I will get a little bit of residue in it, but I will take that off that anyway. And now I'm going to run the hardener as well down the sides. And as you can see, this is actually quite a bit thicker, but it will thin out when it mixes with that warmer resin part. And the reason I don't heat the hardener up as well is because, actually, even though with this resin that I've got about 30-minute work time, I don't want to speed it up too much, the curing process. So now to the stirring. I'm using a plastic little stirrer that I've just got. I got it sent to me with some bits and pieces that I've ordered, rather than wood, because actually plastic obviously isn't porous, so it doesn't contain air, so it's not going to introduce air into it to start with. And I find it quite easy to use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this in really gently. I'm not making an omelette, so I'm not trying to beat air into it in any way. It's not a souffle or anything like that. It literally just needs to be mixed up. I will not lift this stick off the bottom either, because that can introduce air. So as I'm stirring, I'm making sure I go in to the bottom of this pot. Additionally, I won't go round in a beating action like a figure eight or anything like that, but what I will do is I will slowly work into the middle and then slowly work back out, as well as I will ensure that I scrape the bottom and the sides. And I will mix this for about 3 minutes, because that's what they tell me to mix for. So that's been mixing for nearly 3 minutes. I've got about 6 or 7 seconds. I do time it. before that is ready. Okay, so that's 3 minutes. Now, being very, very careful, taking that out, I'm not sure if you can see that. That has got no bubbles in that you can see. But there will be little tiny, weeny micro bubbles in there somewhere. And I want them gone as well. So now that's mixed, and it's just the two parts that are mixed well, I will put it back in the water that I was using before. So it's a lot cooler water, and I will just sit that in there for a few minutes while I prepare my moulds. The first stone I'm going to be using is this one. I'm just going to drop that down the side. And that will definitely sit in there. And then the next one I'm going to use is this one. And now I'm going to add a little bit more resin. I'm going to run it down the side of this one. Okay. And now it will produce some bubbles because it will have trapped some bubbles in there. But they will come out quite easily. There we go, there's one there, can you see? He's come to the top. Why it's a he, I don't know. She, it. I want that stone there. I'm going to let that one come to the top. There we go. There's a big one there because it was trapped under the stone. There's a couple of big ones there, but they will rise to the top. There we go, I've hooked those out. Right, and the reason I put my stones in at this point is because we all know, a eureka moment, that the stones are going to disperse resin. So I don't want to fill it up with resin and then put my stones in. Okay, so I'm now going to fill this up to the top, and it is quite a good at doming this resin. Okay, I'm just going to give it a few little taps because that should help release any more of those little bubbles, and then I'm just going to put it to one side. I will come back to that in a second. And as you can see, there are still very few, if not no, bubbles in this resin. And that's because I took a great deal of care in mixing it, making sure I warmed it, and it's still, look, still quite runny, so I've still got working time with it. So what I'm now going to do is I've got these jewellery moulds, and I'm going to be putting some stones into these jewellery moulds. But what I've got to remember, and I sometimes forget, and what I think is a really good idea, is the bottom of the mould is actually your front of your pendant or your piece of jewellery. Because if not, you end up having to sand the back and then polish it, because it sometimes does, you know, go in a little bit as it's curing in such a shallow mould. So when I'm thinking about putting this down, I'm actually thinking about what bit do I want showing. So I don't want that bit showing because it's got a couple of white dots on, but I do like that side, so I'm going to pop that one there. And now I'm going to pour my clear resin and let that take itself wherever it wants to go first, and then I will go back and make sure that it's all completely covered, because I'm going to pour this in one pour. I'm not expecting to have to go over this again with any more resin. That might be enough because I want to put that big bit in there, but obviously I don't want to try and trap any air in it. Hopefully that hasn't trapped any air, but I'm going to push it down and lift it up and then bring it back down again, and that hopefully will have done the trick. and got rid of any air in it. So, one more tiny bit in there. I don't think there's quite enough resin in this one. Yep, that's it. Now there is a bubble coming up there, as you can see. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Like so. Bring it to the top and let it burst. Oh, there's one there. Another one. There is another one there because I just put that one in it. I watched myself do it. There's air under that bit there. I can push it down and move it so it brings that bubble out. Right, that's the air gone. I'm just pushing on these bits to make sure there's none in there. As you can see, these bubbles are rising to the top quite nicely. And because there's no real micro bubbles in there, they are quite large bubbles. So, there we go. And let's come back to this one. As you can see, there is just a few tiny bubbles that have come to the top of that. And what I shall do is, I will not be using my torch on that, because a torch will cause it to possibly burn and adhere too much to the silicone mould, and I've had that happen too many times to me because I'm just not careful. So I'm just using this heat gun, and that will then bring them up. And what I shall then do is I shall quickly cover these up so dust and things don't get in them, and leave them to cure. Well, it's now been about 36 hours, and these have cured lovely, and this is the exciting bit. So let's get these out of the mould, and they should come out quite easily, which they are, and that's because I haven't used the torch on them. So that's the which was the front when we were just looking at it, but that's going to be the back of the actual pendant, because like I said to you, I try and work in reverse. And that's the front. Ooh, that came out easier than I hoped. And there we go. Again, that's crystal clear. There are a few little teeny weeny micro bubbles in there. Nothing you're really going to bother you. That bit of stone there is beautiful. And so there we go. That's it. I hope this has been useful. Please share with me if you have any other ideas other than using a pressure pot on how to get the bubbles out of casting resin, because I love to learn and I love to try new things. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button and share this video as much as you can and leave a comment. Thank you very much. I love them. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share this video as much as you can. Bye.